whose name sleeps in my heart, and there it tears it apart my eyes windows to the beauty of your name. 7 letters that I've loved for.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome. It's Friday morning, alhamdulillah. We are approaching the end of the week. We have a really inspiring show coming up for you this morning.
We have approached the Shahada of Imam Zain and Abedeen alayhi salam. Imam Sajjad was present during the events of Karbala, however was unable to take part in the battle due to being very ill.
Of course, it was his mission given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to inform the people of what had happened and continue the legacy of his father. In hadith it has been narrated that not a day went by when Imam Sajjad would weep for what had happened to his father, Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Absolutely, and the events of Karbala were unthinkable, unfathomable. It was Imam Baraka, son of Imam Sajjad, who was only 4 years old during the Battle of Karbala, and it was him who mentioned that if we knew the full extent of what had occurred, we would perish from the thought. And it really goes to show the atrocity of what occurred against those who were serving Allah.
Yeah. It also goes to show the strength and the agility of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. It was their mission to spread and continue the message of our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family.
Absolutely, and it really does make you realise that this is truly the right path, and we should take heed of our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family, and the Holy Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon him, which all go hand in hand with these two weighty things when we will never go astray.
Yeah. So it really does cement that notion. The more we learn and the more we commemorate, it is during this time that we remember Imam Sajjad alayhi salam on his martyrdom, and we remember how much all of the Imams sacrificed for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for Islam. So this morning we will be, as usual, starting with Brother Mustafa Al-Ali, who will once again be blessing our studio with a beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran from Surah Fatir.
We also have Brother Ibrahim Ansari on the couch with our daily du'as, and today we'll be looking at Ziyarat Arba'in, looking into that and reaping the benefits, inshallah.
We're also bringing you live footage from those actually on pilgrimage taking part in the Arba'in walk. Of course, we're hoping to reap the benefits of seeing the walk from the comfort of our own homes. And right after that, we also have the poetry and recitation segment of today's show. And this morning we have Nouri Sardar back on the couch. Really looking forward to seeing him again.
Absolutely, it was an amazing combination seeing the two of you. This morning we also have Sister Masuma Jafar answering your personal questions with Dear Masuma, and today we'll be discussing Sayyidah Zain, peace be upon her, and discussing her sermon.
And of course we also have our cutest guest of the morning, our little Husseini, who will be educating us on the rituals during Muharram and Saffar.
And finally we also have Sayyid Musa Shah on the couch with your fit questions and queries.
Right now we are giving the opportunity to deliver a personal ziyarah to any member of your deceased family or friends. More details with our colleague in Karbala, Bye-bye.
By one never unloved Hussein, with everything patient, with your love impatient, daily you I lament, daily.
We are born with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn to crawl, to walk, to read, and to write. We live our lives. We donate to humanity, we donate to society, and we donate to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Before you know it, we die. We leave this life and we move on to the next journey. Morning Baraka is offering you the chance to help your loved ones on their journey. We are taking down names of your loved ones who are no longer with you to dedicate a recitation of the holy ziyarat of Imam Hussein to them. Our reciters will recite a ziyarat Ashura on your loved one's behalf right here from the holy land of Karbala and in front of the holy shrine of Abi Abdullah Hussein, Abu Abdullah. We understand the pain of losing a loved one and wanting to do the best for their akhirah. That is why Morning Baraka is giving you the opportunity to give comfort to those who have moved on. All we want you to do is to send in the names of your loved ones, family members, neighbors, friends, associates, and we will recite and donate to their akhirah only on Morning Baraka here on IMAM HUSSEIN TV 3.
If you would like to participate in this initiative, please send the name of the marhum you would like the ziyarat read for to either Morning Baraka at IMAM or comment your marhumeen's names on our Instagram page at IMAM HUSSEIN 3 TV, and we will make sure this gift reaches them.
Yes, good morning, dear viewers, and of course this part of the segment before we go into the daily du'as are very interesting discussions regarding the du'as and the supplications associated with Muharram and Arba'een. We of course are going to be listening from Mustafa Al-Ali. Mustafa, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Good.
Good. Today inshallah Surah Fatir, as I believe, so that's chapter 35 verse 15. We again, as always, very much look forward to hearing you.
Inshallah. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأت بخلق جديد. يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأت بخلق جديد. وما ذلك على الله بعزيز. ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن تدع مثقلة إلى حملها لا يحمل منه شيء ولو كان ذا قربى. إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة. ومن تزكى فإنما يتزكى لنفسه وإلى الله المصير. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Fantastic performance once again, Mustafa Ali. Thank you so much for your time. This part of the show in Morning Baraka, we really like to start the morning with number one, the Quran recitation, but then number two, in order to really get closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially during the days of Muharram and Saffar, is to really pick the du'as and the ziyaras that are associated with Muharram and Saffar. Of course, we are constantly discussing this with our dear guest, Ibrahim Al-Ansari. Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
We're doing well, alhamdulillah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me once again.
Brilliant. So I guess we've had a lot of discussions about the importance of Ziyarat Ashura, for example. We even dedicated 2 episodes to it.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is that there's a bit of a difference when it comes to the narrative and even the way the language that's used in Ziyarat Ashura and Ziyarat Arba'in. Can you shed some light about that?
I think one of the main points in which we realize why there is a difference is who actually narrated the ziyarah. So Ziyarat Ashura, we said, was by Imam Zain Abedeen alayhi salatu wasalam, whereas this specific ziyarah is by Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam.
Right.
And like we've mentioned before, in the same way that the Imams, they had different ways in which they gave their teachings, and we mentioned that before, so no need to go over it again.
Yeah.
Another thing we realize is that their style in du'as is different as well.
Right.
In which we realize, so I'm going to just ask a question, we can talk about this. We see, for example, Du'a Kumail, narrated by Imam Ali.
Yeah.
And we find Du'a bi Hamza al-Thamali, narrated by Imam Zain al-Abidin.
Yeah.
There's a difference in that as well. Although the core is very similar. Although the core of that du'a and seeking closeness to Allah and asking forgiveness is very similar, but it's different.
So
Du'a al-Iftitah, sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna say-
I'm really interested in this topic. Go on.
No, so mine will be probably
Yeah.
a simpler question. As in, is it the style you're saying that sort of they start off with beseeching Allah, praising Allah, then sort of...
No.
So how
It's
is
the
he saying?
wording.
Yeah.
It's the wording.
Yeah.
There's always
Sure.
something different in the wording.
So is there, can I look at a dua and then find like a certain word or a phrase and then say, oh, okay, this one is associated with a certain imam?
Do you know what it is? A lot of our scholars, in fact, the way they know that the dua is actually... So you know how we look at Senate?
Yeah.
We usually look at Senate. Our scholars, when they look at du'as, they look at what is included in the dua, the way it is written, and through that they know what the Senate is. To the extent where even du'a bi Hamza al-Thamali, some people came forward and they said, this dua has no Senate. Scholars came forward and they said, even if there is no Senate to it at all, and we cannot find a specific person narrating it,
We know from
we
the
still
language.
know that it goes back to the Imam.
Wow.
Because of what it includes. That is very specific.
So do you know on the top of your head any type of language that's used that's associated specifically with Imam Ali, for example?
I
on the
wish
top
I
of your
would
head.
know. Honestly, I wish I would know.
okay.
But I think this
Well,
is...
I guess
this
that's
is-
something for the viewers to actually go back.
Definitely.
If the viewers want to send in some of their findings as to if they can actually
think that would be
go back
beautiful.
home and then look up different du'as or supplications to find a correlation between
Yeah.
one
Yes.
that's specific to Imam Ali, that would be actually very fascinating to look
educate
into.
us.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
inshallah. And another thing we realize, not only is it within dua, even in their speeches. So we realize the way Rasulullah used to talk is not the same way Imam Ali talked. The way Fatima al-Zahra talked is not the way Imam Ali talked. All of the Imams, the way their speeches worked, and we've mentioned before about Sayyidah Zainab and how the person, what did he specifically say? He says, كأنها تفرغ عن لسان أبيها, as if Imam Ali is talking. Didn't say it's as if Fatima al-Zahra was talking. And we know Fatima al-Zahra's speech was powerful. Fatima al-Zahra's speech was powerful and everyone heard it. Everyone heard it. This speech, but he didn't say it's as if she's talking like her mother. And that would possibly be the most relevant thing to say.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because usually the daughter tends to be
Yes,
take
that's the
more
mother.
like the mother does.
Yeah, yeah.
But he specifically said it's as if Imam Ali is talking because of the style of the
Yeah.
speech. And similarly with the dua, the way the dua is said, the way the ziyarah is said, it just shows something else. And we see not only in this, and I think we possibly have a episode specifically for this, for Ziyarat al-Nahiya. Even that, the way you're approaching the Imam is different.
Can I just ask you, so in terms of the timeline, so Imam Zain al-Abedeen was there at Karbala, came, and then we have Ziyarat Ashura, which is such a powerful ziyarah, miraculous. Ziyarah Arba'in, said Imam Sadiq, has written. In the time that it's in between sort of Imam Bakr, do the Ahl Bayt, are they reciting something in between that? Or is this specifically for the followers that they've come, written something?
You see, the Imams, not only do they do ziyarah, but they always tell their companions to do ziyarah.
Right.
And not only that, they always used to hold majalis in commemoration of the Imam.
Okay.
So there was constant remembrance of the Imam. Throughout time, Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq, Imam Rida even, and Imam Rida, the reason I mentioned him specifically is because the very famous poetry done by Da'b al-Khuza'i that he recited by him, we see many teachings from that. A lot of teachings from that. And Imam Rida, when he comes and Da'b al-Khuza'i was about to say his poetry, he told him to stop. He said, recite it as you recite it. Da'b al-Khuza'i used to live in Iraq. And in Iraq, this whole na'i style in which you perform the musibah in specific tune, that was present from then. So he taught him to recite it like they do. These ziyaras, when they are narrated, they are usually said in how the Imam himself used to send his salutations to Imam Hussein.
Okay.
So even Ziyarat al-Nahiya, which we're going to get to inshallah in the next couple of episodes, whenever that is prepared for you, we see that specific ziyarah is Imam Mahdi's sending his salutations to Imam Hussein.
Right.
Ziyarat Ashura is Imam Zain al-Abedeen doing that.
Okay.
Ziyarat Warith, which we went through last episode if you remember, it is also Imam al-Sadiq sending his salutations to the Imam in his way. So every ziyarah is specific to the Imam and sending his salutations to them. Alongside that, he will teach us.
Amazing, yeah.
And we take from them the best of examples. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You had in Rasulullah a great example, and the infallibles after Rasulullah, of course, are included in this.
So how comes, maybe if you know the answer or not, it's fine, but how comes there's a gap between Imam Zain al-Abedeen and Imam al-Sadiq narrating the ziyarah of Ashura and Arba'een? Although they're about a year apart, I would say, for like Ashura and Arba'een, I don't know, narrations differ when it actually happened. Was it 40 days after or was it a year after? But let's just say it was a year. But then the difference between Imam Zain al-Abedeen, the time difference between Imam Zain al-Abedeen and Imam al-Sadiq was a good couple of years.
Definitely.
So what's the explanation there, if you know?
The thing is, with Imam Zain al-Abedeen, Imam al-Sadiq, it isn't different narrations. Like I said before, it is their way of sending their salutations to the Imam.
Okay.
So there is no
so they're companions.
So time is not actually involved in here.
Right.
So for example, and without any tashabih, as we say in Arabic, so without comparison, but for example, if I was to sit here and I would send my salams to the Imam in a specific way, that is my way of sending my salams. Okay. The Imams, when they did that was their way of sending.
But having said that, so what you've just said is that their companions would have known how to send it basically because they had the Imam amongst them.
Yes.
So we aren't obviously with that direct contact, so we
have the narrators.
Yes, we have those.
Yeah, we have the narrators who give us how Imam Zain al-Abedeen did it, so we do Ziyarat Ashura. And specifically, how Imam al-Sadiq did Ziyarat al-Arba'een, which is why we do it at the time of Arba'een.
Okay.
Specifically,
because that's become the norm now. That's become part of what we do when it comes to Ziyarat al-Arba'een in terms of the actual actions associated with it. So
inshallah, until our own Imam comes, and inshallah we are guided.
We've got Ziyarat al-Nahiya from our own Imam, and that one is deep.
It's something else, isn't it? So going forward, would you like to recite what you've prepared, and then we can perhaps go into?
Definitely. So I chose this specific part from the ziyarah, inshallah. اللهم إني أشهد أنه وليك وابن وليك وصفيك وابن صفيك الفائز بكرامتك أكرمته بالشهادة وحبوته بالسعادة واجتبيته بطيب الولادة فأعذر في الدعاء ومنح النصح وبذل مهجته فيك ليستنقذ عبادك من الجهالة وحيرة الضلالة، وجعلته سيدا من السادة وقائدا من القادة وذائدا من الذادة، وأعطيته مواريث الأنبياء وجعلته حجة على خلقك من الأوصياء. So that, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, that specific part of the ziyarah, the reason I chose it was because it includes a few very important parts. Number one, although it talks about how he is wasiyuka wa ibn wasiyik and his great status, he says akramtahu bishahada. So regardless of Imam Hussein's status, regardless of this extreme status that he had of infallibility, of closeness to Allah, of piety, on top of that, akramtahu bishahada, as in martyrdom was given to him as a karama. So as in the karama, when we talk about karama,
we know what it is in there.
it's close. It's how you give a gift to someone, where you get them to be higher. You give a higher gift to someone, you higher in their status. So it is saying that Imam Hussein's status was uplifted and he was given a greater gift than the actual position he had as an imam by being granted martyrdom. So that, for number one, it increased in his status, what happened on that day. Not only does he mention that that was increased in his status, but it also says that before he was granted martyrdom, that he used to always give advice. And that he did not go into that part of going into martyrdom straight away, that part of going into war, unless he gave his full advice. And that is very important. Because Imam Hussein alayhi afdal salati was salam, when he stood on the plains of Karbala, he clearly said, "Ma kharajtu ashran wala batira, wala zaliman wala mufsida." I did not go out because I just want to spend time, because I have no time, because I just want to do anything. I did not go out because I want to oppress. I did not go out to cause corruption. إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي. I came out for nothing but to ask for goodness and to better the ummah of my grandfather. When? حينما رأيت أن المعروف لا يعمل به وأن المنكر لا يتناهى عنه. When I saw that good is not being enjoined and evil is not being forbidden from, خرجت, I came out لأأمر بالمعروف, to enjoin good and forbid evil. وأنهى عن المنكر, and very importantly وأسير بسيرة أبي وجدي رسول الله, and to follow the footsteps of my father and my grandfather Rasulullah. Meaning Imam Hussein, he did not go out on that day because he wanted leadership. He did not go out on that day to topple Yazid from his throne. No, he went out because he saw specifically that religion was taken astray. The people were not following religion as Rasulullah had taught them to be taught. Taught them to be done, sorry. So Imam Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, firstly, he tried to give them nasiha, he tried to give them advice to better themselves, and then after which, when they rejected, the only way was to, after they started, and we're going to realize this in Ziyarat al-Nahiya as well, after they started war, he went on war against them in order to firm the religion.
Because it got to that point, but it's amazing, isn't it, subhanAllah, how the Ahl Bayt Imams are just constantly giving guidance to us, and that hasn't really ceased, and we haven't got much time, unfortunately. It's such a vast topic.
I think we just sat here, both of us, just listening, really attentively.
I really would like to know, obviously, both of you, just quickly, if you know, I'm sure you've been to Arba'in. We've spoken in previous years.
I haven't actually.
You haven't?
Yeah, make dua for me, inshallah.
For the blessings of your
I'm
input
granted
here.
Arba'in ziyarah in the upcoming years, likewise for you and your families, inshallah.
Inshallah. So, Brother Ali, anything you'd like to sort of people who haven't been? What would you say is sort of highlight what it means to you on Arba'in?
Arba'in is just, it's a walk, or it's a journey where a lot of self-realization happens, because a lot of the time, the main part of Arba'in is the walk itself. So you walk from Najaf to Karbala. A lot of people, they only, the outside of Iraq, those who haven't visited or those who just see on their social media, they see what's been given to them by the lens of the people there. And the people there, obviously, it's only at certain times can they record what's going on. But most of the time, I'd say 80 to 90% of the whole time you're there, you're either walking in silence, you're reflecting upon yourself, maybe you're having a very deep conversation with a friend, or maybe you're just contemplating about the person that you're going to, and every step that you're taking towards them, what's happened in your life so far. So you're more or less, removing everything that's happened in your past and taking those steps forward to Imam Hussein salam to make sure that those steps forward is going to be the change that you take back when you go back to your home country. I think that's probably, in conclusion, the one thing that I'll give is if you really want time away from the whole, the lifestyle of the West and the challenges and the priorities and the commitments that you have, and just to really take time away from that and to have a lot of time to yourself, it's the walk of Arba'een, and I really recommend it to the viewers.
It's a walk of love, it really is, and I think if you experience it exactly how you're saying, it means so many different things to different people, doesn't it? And I hope everybody, inshallah, including you, brother, that you get to experience that walk. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Inshallah, we'll see you another morning, and please do have a blessed day.
Likewise to the both of you, inshallah, and your beautiful families.
Thank you very much. Of course, Zara, as Zara mentioned, we really do thank Ibrahim for his input and his insight into the ziyarah of Arba'een. As I mentioned, in terms of the lens that people provide for you as to what happens in Arba'een, IMAM HUSSEIN TV, of course, also provides that lens to bring what happens in Karbala, in Ashura, in Arba'een as well, to the screens, to your homes. And what you'll see next is essentially what everything's about when it comes to Arba'een, from the walk, from the sacrifice, the service, and then after that you'll see myself on Verses of Love, inshallah.
You cannot die. You cannot die. That I may die, but you will keep on living. That you live on, even though we're left grieving. And I will walk on the roads you would walk. Your words live on, though you no sword, no arrow can pierce your armored shadow. Who can kill the tears that flow for Hussein? They thought you'd go there to die. What made you live as your Lord? They thought you'd be defeated, your blood defeated the sword. I salute Al-Maimun, the Madid of Karbala, the sorrow of Zahra. I salute Al-Moon, I salute Al-Maimun, the Madid of Karbala, the sorrow of Zahra. I salute Al-Moon. They could not bury beneath the earth the one we love. When he was buried beneath ground, yet him above. And we know that just as well as you had known that, but we haven't stopped loving you till our last breath. And when like you we had died, we had known that death had lied, because your love, even death itself can't hide. Just yesterday, alone you lay. 1,000 years, but we live it day after day. For your love, like you, our loved ones taken away. just like you know your loss and your sorrow. We are still killed today, living in your shadow. We know just like you know your loss and your sorrow. We are still killed today, living in your shadow. Oh, last of Karbala, oh, thirst of Karbala, oh, slain of Karbala, oh, pain of Karbala. We know when we're born that from our souls shall be torn, as we lament and we mourn for Hussein. Look what Karbala gave us, in return what can we give? I thought I'd go there to die, in fact I went there to live. I salute and I mourn the madad of Karbala, the sorrow of Zahra. I salute and mourn.
As you can see on your screen, some very, very interesting scenes as the build up towards the day of Arba'een increases day by day in and around Karbala. The walking actually, is traditionally known to walk from Najaf to Karbala, but as we know, the dedication of the Zuwar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they can walk from as far as places as within Iraq, Basra, but we've even heard stories of people walking from the different Gulf regions, like Bahrain, for example. People have walked from Iran, other people have walked from Saudi Arabia. And when I say walk, I literally mean it's not like getting a bus from one area to the other. It's walking. And so what you see on your screens is the camps that have been built by the different servants of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, upon which they give shelter and food and water, and sometimes even outside of the norm services to the Zuwar, like even people massaging the feet of the Zuwar. I've seen places like you can charge your phones, for example. There's many different aspects to the walk, just to try and make as not to make the walk simpler, but just to provide the necessities for them to be able to survive during that walk between Najaf and Karbala traditionally. In this segment, Verses of Love, we take a bit of a deep dive. We delve into the connection to Imam Hussein alayhi salam through the form of recitations, poetry, lamentation, and really emotion as well. So every single day we have different guests and different reciters. Today I'm joined by my dear friend, and it's an honor to be with him as well once again, the poet Nouri Sardar. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
We've had some very interesting and fascinating discussions surrounding your personal journey when it comes to writing poetry and how it's changed over the years depending on what situation you're going through at the time. I think what's very fascinating for the viewers to know, and for myself as well, from a writing perspective, of course, from your work, we understand there's two forms. There's either the albums and the tracks that you do, or it's which is online based, and it's more public facing, where you're actually delivering the poetry to the viewers or to the audience, right? Both of them has the root, and that's actually writing the poem itself. Tell us a bit more about the process that you go through when creating an idea for a live recitation.
So that's actually very interesting, because I learned quite recently, and I wish I'd learned earlier, that a poem should know what it's being intended for. So for example, like I said, you got the album recitations, then you got the ones that I perform live, and then you got the ones that are written that I expect people to read. Early on, what I used to do is I used to take a tune of a latmiya or something that I like, write a poem to that same tune, and then I'd use it perhaps for the album, perhaps I'd recite it as well, perhaps I'd leave it there in my book for people to read. Thereafter, I realized that you need to fine tune each poem to where it's going to be used. So for example, these days for a live recitation, I'll make sure that there's a lot of wordplay involved. It's very easy on the ear in terms of, the flow of it as well, which is where the spoken word influence comes in as well.
Just holding on to that point itself, how do you capture the attention of the audience? Because with recitation, what we do is we, for example, vary when it comes to the tone, the pace. What do you do to
So I mean, ironically, it's actually very similar. You know, you want to go, and this is what recording in the studio taught me as well as looking at like different ways of public speaking. You want to slow down, you want to speed up, you want to use a soft voice, you want to use a powerful voice. And you know, subhanAllah, even though it's not reciting per se, there's still a lot of reciting elements involved in that. And I found that even my vocal cords have strengthened because of it. And it's very interesting because what you want to do is you want to leave the audience in such a way where they're not expecting, they don't know what you're going to say next, but at the same time you capture their attention. So it's quite interesting to delve into.
So tell me a bit more then about the difference between how you would write for a live audience to a track. Then.
So again, it depends. If on the track, for example, I'm working with another reciter, I have to think how does he recite, firstly.
So another element of your 3 different types is actually writing depending on the requests of the reciter.
So I think the best example I can give you is once there was an Arabic reciter, quite renowned one, who wanted a poem from me, and I knew his English was horrible, right? So what I did was I wrote it in such a way where when he would recite it, the types of letters used would be easy on his Arabic tongue.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that extends to
even that.
Yeah, to that extent. So even like, for example, if I write for you, for example, versus if I write for someone like Imran Datu, I know that you have very different reciting styles. You know, I know that there's certain things that would sound better the way he says it. You know, that powerful Urdu kind of line by line poetry, as opposed to when you can tell stories and you can bring flow into it.
Yeah, because our style, for example, I can tell a story because my style allows me to.
Exactly.
Because the Iraqi style is each verse.
It's about that. It's about intimacy. It's about, you know, painting a story. Yeah. Whereas the Pakistani style, it does do the same thing, but it's about bars. It's about line after line of just wow, wow, wow.
So you have to have those bingo lines.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just depends what I'm writing for. And then of course album, as we know, you know, album is something. It's probably the hardest one because you know you're recording it in a.
That's what you're really judged by, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean that's what people are going to listen to most.
Yeah, so
no one's going to read the books, you know, as much as you'd like.
Yeah,
but everyone's going to hear the album, right? So
that has to be the best quality that you have. So is there a lot of pressure on you?
Like I've been saying, you can only try your best. I mean, I think the mistake I make, and maybe you can understand this. Whenever I do something new, I say, okay, I'm doing something that's never been done before. I'm doing something fantastically original. I'm doing something that's new. I'm showing Imam Hussein through a new light. But ultimately, all I'm doing is just trying my best with what I have and the perspective I have at the time. And beyond that, you can't really do anything else.
Yeah, it's difficult because just from your explanation alone, you have to. There's so many different aspects you have to consider before you actually write the poem. So it could range from who you're writing it for, what kind of audience, even to the extent that you're actually contemplating which letters to use because it may suit a certain reciter. So does the quality of the poem
this is the funny thing because
be affected?
Recently in the past year or so, I have kind of slowed down writing for other reciters because I just felt like I wasn't anymore writing for myself. I was just writing to, which, you know, of course, like serving Imam Hussein, like I said before, it's a very broad term and it's very important. But at the same time, I felt like I was just writing too much for others and not enough for myself. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I wasn't writing because I had the emotive feel to do so. I was writing because there was majlis coming up and the reciter needed a poem, and you know, it is what it is.
Why has that changed?
Again, I think it all comes back to where you are at the time, you know, in your life in regards to the poetry. Both of our creative arts, all they do is they reflect who we are and reflect who we are at certain periods of our life. Yeah. Right. So right now I'm in a period where I feel like I've done, you know, a lot in terms of the poetry world, and what I want to do now is just do things that reflect myself, things that I enjoy, write about what I enjoy, you know, write about things that interest me, write about things that are emotive to me. And like I said, I'm sure I'll come back to writing for reciters. I mean, and there was a time where, you know, there was like a switch in my mind. You tell me to write a poem, I put the switch on, and I could just churn out verses for you. Now it's very rusty. I'll turn it on.
Saved me.
Yeah, as you know.
There are times you've absolutely saved me.
But now you turn the switch on and it's very rusty. It's not working. You have to sit there for like an hour, 2 hours thinking about what I want to do. But at the same
it
time,
doesn't come from
exactly,
you.
it's
comes
not.
as
It's
a
not.
request.
It's not a second nature anymore. You know, I mean, it's always going to be a second nature, but it's not a second nature in that way. But it's good because it means that the poems that do come out, like you've seen recently, for example, some of the ones like the Dhul Fuqar one.
Yeah.
You know, like when it does come out, it's quality as over quantity.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm going for now. And I suppose eventually what I'm aiming to get towards is the balance between the two. But again, you're always fluctuating throughout your life with your creative art.
Ideally, which one would you choose over the other?
I'm very happy with where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do miss churning out verses. You know, I've got notepads of just like poem after poem after poem. And if you see the books, you know, it's just you wonder how someone has that much time to write them in that many poems.
No, you know what? Like, it's great because I then, because of the amount of poems that you've written, you've put it into books, hardbacks that I can actually pick up and read, or even on my phone as well.
Yeah.
It saves me from bothering you in a sense, because I know you've got a busy lifestyle, and I know, for example, I have a specific deadline, and I know that because of your priorities it's probably difficult. So I can just go back to the books, and actually anyone who asks me for poems, I say to them, well, look, you have 5 quality books there where you can, and every single scenario within the Shia world, you can pick up a poem and recite. So it's great, and as you said, as a legacy, it's perfect for people to leverage off when it comes to their recitations. So that's amazing. There's a lot more to discuss. I mean, especially when it comes to the process that you go through. So we've really taken a deep dive into the mindset. I think from a technical perspective, what do you go through when it comes to the tracks and to recording the track? Do you, like, how does it work from the beginning to the end, from the track perspective?
I mean, it varies from album to album, and it depends on again, we keep saying this, where I am at the time. For this album that came out this past Muharram, the Karbala narrative, it was a quite last minute process, but the whole idea there was that was probably the first album where I actually wrote poems from scratch for a specific purpose. But the albums preceding that, usually I just pick the best poems that I have, give it to the reciters. And it's all about working with reciters specifically. I think this album I'm not working with reciters as much, but the previous ones, you know, I try to see where the reciter's comfort zone is and prioritize on that, so that you get the best of all worlds. And I think one thing we haven't touched upon yet is couplets online. Oh. Because I think that's actually, you know, probably the biggest part of, you know, my poetry sphere is what you see online. So what I've been doing recently is writing couplets and posting them on Instagram. As I told you before, there's a whole like world out there of Insta poets, you know, and that's something I really want to tap into at the moment. That's my current priority, and that is probably harder than writing a full poem, because you have to summarize what you want to say in just about up to 4 lines, and make sure it's captivating enough to move people the way you want them to be moved. So that, I would say, is definitely the toughest part of writing. Like, I can spend like an hour just sitting down trying to think of a couplet.
Really?
Yeah, and
although it's just 2 lines. But
yeah, and sometimes I think about an hour for one and it comes out and it's horrible. Sometimes I think it's horrible, but it speaks to people. So it's really hard. One thing I would say that I've learned is not to worry too much about what people are going to say about it, about if people are going to criticize it, it's not going to speak to people. Because like I said, ultimately, what's important is that it's true to yourself, right? And as long as it comes from my heart, as long as I felt it moved me, that's what matters. And I put it out there, and like I said, people like it, they don't like it, it moves people, it doesn't. Absolutely. If it does, it's great, but that's what that matters. And you know, we live in a world where success is quantified by likes and shares, right? So recently I've done a spoken word piece about airport secondary checks.
Okay.
It didn't do that well on Facebook, but I'm so proud of the writing and the production of it that it didn't bother me, because it's what I wanted to share at the time, right? I mean, when I say it didn't do well on Facebook, I mean comparatively to the Grenfell one or the other one. Yeah. But at the same time, it doesn't matter to me, because
it's fascinating.
It's just that I wanted to write it, I wanted to get that off my chest, and I wanted to share it.
We'll touch upon that in the next episodes, actually, because a lot of people like recognition.
Yeah, everyone does. It's a human nature.
It's a human nature, and the reason why they probably hold back from writing is because they feel like well, I don't know how many views I'm going to get. And you're right, success is quantified by the amount of likes
Unfortunately,
or shares.
yeah.
And it's not quantified by the actual quality of the poem itself. And
but the irony is, the more sincere you are in your art, I mean any art,
yes.
not even just Islamic art, any art, the more sincere, if you're making a film or whatever, the more sincere you are, the more true to yourself you are, the more successful it usually is.
Definitely.
Which is the irony.
I really look forward to continuing the discussion, actually. It's very, very interesting. On that note, I hand it over to my co-host Zara, who's with Masuma Jafara on the Dear Masuma show, or Dear Masuma segment of the show. And today they are discussing Sayyida Zainab. Sayyida Zainab on that show. Over to you, Zara.
Once again, I have a pleasure to introduce Sister Masuma, who's joined us to talk about these topics in Muharram. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Inshallah, grace of God, you're well, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Good. So today's topic is, we're going to straight away, is obviously a pivotal role in the message of Imam Hussein is about Sayyida Zainab. And we have a question. Sayyida Zainab was so important in continuing the true message of Islam after the death of her brother Imam Hussein. Upon travelling to Damascus to the court of Yazid, she taught humanity so many valuable lessons. What advice would you give to those in difficult times who may come across some of the obstacles seen by Sayyida Zainab?
Okay, I think initially maybe we can start off with looking at some of the lessons that we learned from Sayyida Zainab,
Sure.
Islam's life. For me personally, I think the greatest lesson that one of the greatest lessons that I learned from her is the fact that she was in a situation which was probably the most difficult situation in her whole life, where she was going to lose her brother, her children, and she didn't have her husband by her side. And I think that's huge for me, because whenever I feel like I'm in a difficult situation, or whenever I think, I always feel like I need him to support me.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for me, the greatest lesson was, as long as I have Allah, I don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
And if Allah feels that I'll need someone, He will send me someone.
Yeah.
So I think, as a woman, I had my father looking after me and protecting me. And then when I got married, I had my husband looking after me and protecting me. And I think I personally would rely on them. And I think the lesson that I take away from Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam is my reliance should only be to Allah.
Yeah, but I think when you have those relations, and to detach yourself is amazing, because it's not easy, because that comfort is there.
Yeah.
And for you to then say, actually my reliance is on Allah, when the comfort is there in the world, it's amazing to actually...
But again, Allah doesn't leave you to do it on your own. He helps you through that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll find that when you're expecting this person to be there for you, you'll find that they're not.
Be, yeah.
And then that's when the arguments will happen, and that's when you'll feel let down, and your disappointment. And that's God sort of saying to you, look, you'll never feel that disappointment if you rely on me.
Yeah.
Just come back to me. And it's God sort of making you realize that there is no one who's perfect, and only He will always be there for you.
Definitely.
So, although you think that this person's going to be there for you always, that everyone can think of times when they've been let down by the people that they love. And that's God.
And that's part of life, isn't it? Yeah. We do learn that. And it's amazing, because I think it's such a blessing for you that, to have those worldly comforts, and then to think, well, actually Allah, it is just you that is there. So for me, for instance, for myself, I always look at her strength, and I think, nowadays how many husbands would say that, yes, you can go with your brother, I'll be at home, you can take the children. To think about the personalities and their decisions they made, the fact that she didn't feel that her marriage was going to be the reason for her to stay behind and say, sorry, I've got my marital duties. And we've got to look at the state that we have an imam who's inshallah going to reappear in our lifetime. As a woman, am I going to say, I've got my husband, I'm not coming with you? And she's telling us, no, you leave everything, because your spiritual jihad and your purpose is with Allah. And it's, and I sometimes wonder, it wasn't just her brother, this was the imam of her time.
Yeah,
so she had a responsibility to be with him. And as women, we will also have that, we will be faced with those questions of, decision. Are you going to stay with your worldly life, your children, your husband, whoever it is? And obviously elderly parents' responsibilities, you know, and I'm not saying that's you overlook those things, but if it was a normal situation and you actually think, no, my imam needs me. So I think
again, if you look at the way, sorry, I didn't mean to
No.
But if you look at the way she did it, it was from the beginning, it was something that she'd actually said to him at the time of marriage, that I want to be able to go with my brother if he needs me.
Yeah.
So I think being a wife, being a mother, I need to have those conversations and actually just prepare my family. Look, if my mom comes, I don't want to have to worry about you and asking your permission and saying, you know, can I do this, can I do that? I want you to say, you know what, it's okay for you to go. And I'm saying the same thing to you as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, and as a family, we make that decision and we've had those conversations. So we're actually preparing ourselves for the coming of the imam. We've had these discussions. So none of us actually have to then think about how the other family members will feel, because we already know that, you know, we've got their blessing.
Exactly, and hopefully we're not like, you know, how we were saying about in another program about prophet and all that. It's just you going and your spouse is there and you think, oh my goodness. But I find, you know, her strength, as you were saying quite rightly, that, you know, this was one of, you know, the difficult situation, but you think she was born into a difficult sort of, you know, a jihad from the beginning. She came in and her mother had passed away. She had the responsibility of her siblings, her, you know, going through all that, you know, movement and change. It's not easy for a child. You know, often we say that, you know, in you know, sort of research now, that children need that stability, they need to have that comfort, but anything but Ahlbayt show us that you have none of that, but you are still the best of examples. So don't use those as an example to say, a reason to say, oh, I'm this damaged, because I mean, obviously we're not them, and that's not what I'm saying.
But it shows that as a human being, you can have that potential. You can achieve that.
And I think it's important to, you know, often people say, I hear them saying, well, we're not Imam Hussein, we're not Sayyida Zainab, but we will never be them, and let's not kid ourselves. But in our capacity, we can be the best we can be.
And you also have other people who were not Masum, who still managed to do so much. So, you know, like for example, Bibi Hajar alayhi salam. You know, she wasn't Muslim, but yet she managed to, you know, get to a stage where she achieved so much that, you know, that Allah then gave her that status where not only women but men walk in her footsteps. So, you know, it is possible. So, you know. And
I think also what's wonderful is, you know, sometimes women, there are some women who only relate to women, and yet, you know, Sayyida Zainab, I'm sure she is an example to men as well.
For sure.
Imam Hussein is an example for women. It's their universal character, you know, personalities.
I mean, the actual statement that she makes, that everyone quotes, and I think it's really important to think about, what does that statement mean to me? You know, it's like, you know, you constantly hear, she says, oh, I only saw beauty. And you're thinking, wow, how did you only see beauty? You know, it's like the inhumane way that, you know, they slaughtered the imam of the time, you know, and all her family members, you know, all the males of the family members, and then the way that they were treated afterwards and everything. It's like, how did you only see beauty? And again, I think, you know, reflecting on that and thinking about, what does that mean to me personally? And, you know, and to me, again, it goes back to Allah and the fact that her connection with Allah and seeing the greater picture and seeing Allah's hand in all of it. So she's not just
she's transcended from the physical, hasn't she?
She's not just confining it to this physical world where all there was ugliness.
Exactly.
She's actually seeing through this martyrdom the place where Imam Hussein alayhi salam will reach, you know, the
absolutely the eternity of his position,
the position that he will be given because of what he went through.
And how much he says, I mean, you said in another program about who is Hussein, that to this day his love and sacrifice guides people, because you think, what was it that drew him to do what he did? And you're absolutely right. But I think with Sayyida Zainab, you know, her position on that day, you think, while she transcended it and she saw the reality, you think, how many people would it be if that was us and, you know, our like-minded people that who could actually survive something that's traumatic as that? And so what lessons do we need? And it's probably just exactly that statement, that look beyond what it is that you've suffered.
I think for me that statement is to actually look at the growth that Allah is expecting from me. And He knows that I'm ready for, because He wouldn't give me anything that I'm not ready for. So, you know, there are two things that, you know, that two ways that things happen is either it comes directly from Allah, where Allah decides that, you know, I'm ready for something and He will then give me some sort of difficulty in my life, or something which will help me grow, or because of the free will of mankind, something will happen to me. Again, Allah doesn't abandon me. He gives me the tools to be able to handle it and allow me to grow through that as well. So whatever it is, whether it's through the will of the people or whether it's directly from Allah, I know there is growth in it. And if I know there's growth in it and I'm looking for the growth and I'm looking at it from a very positive perspective, which is where you see, say, the Zainab then come out with that statement about I only see beauty.
Yeah.
Because she could see the positiveness of what it was leading to. She could see the growth within for herself and the other people that were involved, you know, there. What tends to happen with us as human beings is whenever we're put into a difficult situation, we feel sorry for ourselves.
Yes.
And it becomes a very negative thing, and then we wallow in our self-pity. And again, that's a very, you know, that's how Shaitan sort of uses it. And, you know, and then he makes us feel like, oh, poor me, you know, no one has it as difficult as I do, and how, you know, and because we're wallowing in our own self-pity, we never grow and we never then see anything but this, you know, the difficulty that I'm in. And Sayyidina Zainab teaches us.
Sorry.
Sayyidina Zainab alayhi salam teaches us how to sort of, again, transcend from that difficulty to actually see the growth and move towards Allah, because that's what it's all about.
So in terms of to get where she got to and what she saw and everything that, you know, her journey was, which in itself is such a, it's just, you know, it baffles, and it's very, you know, it's enormity of her experience, but her patience to, and her mission started, you know, well, obviously you could say it started from the beginning, but from the point of the martyrdom, where she then had to take that position, and the Imam of her time was, you know, obviously unwell. So do you think, as in sort of within us, that you're saying, you know, we become helpless, the core thing is to be patient through those trials, isn't it? And then the reward comes from, how would you?
Again, I think the word patience itself is a very sort of passive thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at sabr, it's a very active thing.
Yeah.
I would probably translate it more as perseverance rather than patience, because I feel patience in English is a very passive thing. It's like, I'll just wait for this time to be over and then I'll be okay. Or, you know, it's not like that. Sabr is supposed to be where no matter what situation I'm in, I've got that strength to continue and do what is required from, you know, Allah, you know, what Allah requires from me. I'll have that strength within me, and that's sabr. You know, whereas we sort of, just wait it out. Just wait it out, and things will get better, and I'll get over it. That's not what sabr is. So I think it's that concept of perseverance, just pushing myself and knowing that God's given me those tools to be able to handle it and to be able to then move forward and grow from it. And it's again looking at the positive rather than the negative. The sad thing is, I think the way Shaitan works, he constantly makes us look at the negatives. So even when something is very positive, for example, we've been given the opportunity to go for ziyarah. You know, we'll go for ziyarah. We you know, say I'm going for ziyarah for 10 days. Now, when it gets to the 7th, 8th day, I'm already starting to feel negative. It's like, oh, I've got to go back, and next week at this time I'm going to be back in London. I was always meant to go for 10 days. I'd never gone there to stay there. Do you see? And then what I do is, because I'm feeling very negative, the last few days are wasted to a certain extent. And then I come back and then I go through what people have referred to as the post-ziyarah blues. Again, you know, I'm supposed to come back spiritually uplifted and, you know, ready for this world and bring it back into my world and everything. But what Shaitan's done is he's made the positive experience of ziyarah into a negative thing, because all I'm doing is feeling sorry for myself. Oh, I'm not back there now. I wish I was there.
Is it just that, or that the fact that separation is a part of our existence?
Yes, but
that yearning, and they are
the yearning
purpose and the reality
pushes
of that.
you to emulate those personalities, not to sort of feel sorry for yourself. They never, you know, you never see them feeling sorry for themselves. It's like none of the Ahlul Bayt ever felt sorry for themselves. Yes, they felt sad because they were humans. Of course, they felt sad, but they never felt sorry for themselves. Whereas we're constantly feeling sorry for, you know, it's not fair. I was in ziyarah. You know, do you see the difference? It's like, yes, you will feel sad because of the yearning of being separated from the, you know, from them, but
look at the fact that you were there.
Yes, and what did I get from it? And, you know, how am I going to bring it back to my life? What am I going to do with that opportunity that God gave me? How am I going to grow from it? So constantly be looking for the growth and the positiveness rather than the negativity.
Keep the zen.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's all
You're
we
welcome.
have time for. Inshallah, another topic next time. And now we have mini Husseinis.
سلام عليكم، أنا مزراج الحسيني حريم. Today I'm here at Hussein Rasul with my granddad Haji Ali. I'm here today to get ready for tonight's majlis and for the coming nights of Muharram. So come on inside and I'll show you what I'll be doing.
Our home is Karbala, where the youth of the Shia, Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it forever. Our home is Karbala, where the youth of the Shia, Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it forever. We will never let it fall. When we see it,
Today I'm here at Hussein Rasul for a small majlis and I'm going to help prepare for it. First thing I'm going to be doing is putting out the chairs.
we will never let it fall. When we see it, we stand tall. Salute it and we then call.
Before the majlis, we have to make sure the carpet's clean, so I'm going to hoover.
Karbala, where the youth of the Shia, Hussein's flag is our treasure. We will fly it forever. Our home is Karbala, where the youth of
So we are going to have a Sajjad to speak to us. I'm going to put the microphone on the mamba.
we will fly it forever. In Muharram, every hall has this flag hung on the walls. We saw it.
Now we're ready for the majlis. See you guys next time. Bye.
Welcome back, and as you are watching, it's mini Husseinis. Again, it's the little adventure that she goes through when it comes to understanding a bit about Muharram, and it's something that myself and Zara have been through when it comes to the rituals associated with Muharram, wearing black, for example, helping out in the Husseiniyah. So we very much look forward to her journey. To join her with her journey as well. So this part of the show, we're looking into shedding some light on the jurisprudential context of Muharram and Saffar, Ashura and Arba'een. And today we're talking about specifically bloodletting. And to share these insights with us, we're going to be speaking to Sayyid Mohsin Shah, who's as ever joining us on our esteemed couch. So we thank you very much for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Sayyid? Everything okay?
I'm very well. How are you too?
Good,
Thank
good.
you.
Not bad.
Mashallah.
Not
Good,
bad, not
good.
bad.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So you've obviously said it as bloodletting. Would you like to describe to our viewers what we specifically mean by bloodletting?
Bloodletting, I think, is the best word, formal word to use for what we say as the rituals which we cut or allow blood to pour out of our body in remembrance, in mourning, in grieving, and to feel the pain of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Such rituals are, for example, tatbir, where we strike the head with a small knife, and also zanjir zani, where we have chains with knives on the back, which are swung on the back, and also to an extent the chest beating also can cause skin to burst and to blood to come out from there. And another ritual which it's not really bloodletting, but the walking on the fire, which is another ritual which is probably misunderstood.
Right, before you start, so for the purpose of viewers, ignorance of myself, who's never done this, explain what person goes through when they're actually doing this ritual.
So with the bloodletting, let's say we'll focus on the knives for now. So you have tatbir and you have zanjir zani. Tatbir being a knife known as a qama, even the English call it a qama knife.
All right.
And the idea is that you dress in white and you walk around and strike your head with the knife to cause small cuts, to allow blood to come out, to give you a sense of feeling of what Abu Abdullah went through, and also what Imam Ali went through when he was struck on the head by Ibn Muljam alayhi. And one would do this as a communal, a gathering event where they will go together, they will recite poetry, they will recite the Masa'ib of Abu Abdullah while striking their head with the sword.
Is it quite a spiritual uplifting? Do you really feel?
Can I just shed a bit of light on that as well? Because what he was saying was absolutely correct from the technicality of it. But what I hear from people who actually take part in the acts and what it makes them feel. Because number one, there's two areas, there's two places that people do it. It's either in Karbala itself, or it's within their homes, within their communities. And the whole idea is wearing white resembles the kafan, the chafan. So you are ready to die for Imam Hussein salam. And many a time we always say in the majalis, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum fanafuzu fawzan azima. So we pray and we wish that we were with you on that day. Because Imam Hussein salam on that day he called out to the people, you know, Hal min nasrun yansuruna, is there anyone to help us? We understand that this call wasn't to the people there, it was to the people, the call was to resonate throughout time and space. And to transcend time and space to reach the communities of this day and age, right? Yeah. And to answer that call, there are, you know, people answer that call in many different ways. You can answer that call by writing articles. You can answer that call by doing many different media or social actions. Other people want to answer that call by the way that Karbala played out or happened, a full-on war. So people actually died, and there was blood, and there was a lot of bloodletting, shall we say? So to associate themselves with what actually happened, to feel some sort of pain, they'd almost dress in a way that that the people of the time would. So the swords and the white kafan and the sand beneath your feet, it's almost telling Imam Hussein salam, I am ready, and this is the way I want to repay the faith that you've given to me. I want to repay my I want to pledge my allegiance in this way. So a lot of the controversy surrounding that is, oh, it's barbaric and everything. But in essence, everyone that returns to Imam Hussein, or everyone that wants to connect to Imam Hussein, will connect in a different ways. But I'm sure Sayyid has more insight.
Do you think people, obviously you've spoken to, who do this, achieve that goal?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, so we're going to carry on, because thank you, because I wouldn't understand. Obviously,
yeah. I'm sure the Sayyid will also, you know, sort of shed more light on this. But from a spiritual sense, the question actually, which I want to ask to you, just to deflect it here, the question is, a lot of people say, okay, so we can understand with majalis why people will show a lot of intense grief, because it's a build-up of emotions.
Indeed.
They start with the poetry, and then it will go into the masa'ib, and then it will kind of it's a build-up. But with tatbir, it seems like a bit static. Like,
I think with
you stand and then you start, and then how does it really?
No.
But the maqtal, I'm saying, the way you're describing it is a very visual, isn't it? You're putting yourself in your mind. But what the tabir is a very physical action. So there's quite two different senses that are coming into play here. So.
Yeah,
that's where.
Yeah, the Sayyid can.
With tatbir, I believe that first of all, there would be in some places. I know with the Pakistani community, there's always a Masai before.
Yeah.
There will always be a Masai before. Traditionally, it's done just before the Fajr Adhan.
Yeah.
They have the Masa'ib, and then we have a specific Masa'ib for Ali Akbar, because he was known to be resemble Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even in the way he spoke. And that we have this thing called the Ali Akbar Adhan on Ashura. The Fajr Adhan is known as Ali Akbar's Adhan, because they said that when he recited the Adhan that Fajr morning, people thought Rasulullah had come back to life, because it resembled Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam so much. So we'll do that adhan, and that's when the battle started, and that's when they will take out the chains or the qamat, and they will do it. It's done differently. I know in the Iraqi community, they recite Ziyat Ashura before. Everyone is with their white coffins on and their qamat ready. They recite Ziyat Ashura. They will go into the courtyard, or if it's done indoors, it's done indoors. They'll go to the place, and they will have the trumpet and the drums, and there's this like this big wave of emotion and noise, as in you actually think you're at a battle. You actually feel that you're there with the drums and the horn going, and you're there, and you can hear the chants, and you can hear the people wailing Ya Hussein, Ya Zainab, and is there to, in a way, give you a feeling of what it was like to be on that battlefield. But at the same time, like Ali Father said, was to pledge your allegiance to Abu Abdullah, and to say that, look, I'm here for you, and I'm willing to give my blood for you. And a lot of people also take that opportunity to give their allegiance to Imam Mahdi, may Allah, hasten his reappearance, and to show and give your allegiance to Imam Mahdi with your own blood. that this blood belongs to Imam Mahdi now. It doesn't belong to me.
And another thing, it's you mentioned that point actually, and I'm very interested to contextualize it from a jurisprudential point of view. So, tatbir, what is the fiqh aspect to it then?
Fiqh aspect, I have to tell the people that please refer back to your marja, because the marja have different opinions on bloodletting. But majority do accept it, do allow it, and His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi says it's mustahab. Now the reason he says it's mustahab, now you could refer back to his Risala Amaliyah, and if you go to the pages 601, the recent Risala Amaliyah 601, there's a section on Ashura, there's a section on Tatbir, and he gives his what you call the istidlal of where he has come up with this fatwa, his fatwa. And he says that in Bahar al-Anwar we have references to the Aimma and the Ahlul Bayt bloodletting, where they would hear the Masa'ib or they would have seen. So the one is Sayyidah Zainab, when she saw the head of Abu Abdullah in Sham on the spear, she hit her head onto what we call the pole of the carriage that she was in, and she started to bleed. Another one, which is in Bahar al-Anwar, is Imam Sajjad. Imam Sajjad was speaking with his companion Jabir, and when he was telling Jabir what happened, he got very, very emotional. He grabbed the nearest thing, which was a lamp, and he hit that in his head, and they say he fell unconscious on the floor, and there was blood pouring out. Also today I was listening to a lecture by Bashir Najfi, who was a marja in Najaf, and he was describing how Imam Sajjad, a companion came to Imam Sajjad and said, I had a dream, and Sayyidah Fatima Zahra was in that dream, and she had her blessed, the head of her son, Imam Hussein, in her lap, and she was crying and wailing. When Imam Sajjad heard this, he hit his head on the wall and broke his nose. So,
just on that point actually of certain personalities hitting themselves with intense grief, there is a historical narration actually which mentions that, I think it was Awais al-Qarani.
Teeth.
Yeah. So and this is actually in the presence of Rasulullah. So if Rasulullah had no issue with Awais hitting his mouth with a stone, and let's just be real here, this is what the historical texts will say. The person hit himself with a stone, causing his teeth to break and bleed.
Every single one.
Right. So if Rasulullah had an issue with that, because of the man showing intense pain, he would have said something.
Definitely.
But because he didn't, can we take that as, the Maraja will take that as evidence?
There is definitely. Some Maraja may have an issue with this hadith for whatever reason. However, plenty of Maraja have said that this hadith is authentic and there's nothing wrong with this hadith, and they can use this to extract a ruling on self-harm, self-flagellation, and on bloodletting, that for the case of Abu Abdullah and the Imam is perfectly fine. In fact, the hadith, if you read the hadith, it goes on that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praised this man and was happy with his actions.
It's quite phenomenal, isn't it? Because I think when you love a personality more than yourself, more than your physical parents that Allah has blessed us in this world, there's just no limit to expressing that grief, isn't it, when in that love. So I think it's very easy for people to look from outside and say, but it's this and it's that. But I think for the people that are actually involved in the whole process, it's such a personal journey, isn't it? And having said that, though, from an outsider's perspective, that anybody who was to, I often hear people saying, type in Shia into a global search, and you will see images, quite disturbing images of children having their heads cut swords and bleeding. And how are we portraying this image then through this action, which we understand is through love, but that's not necessarily for people who we are trying to show the message of Ahl Bayt, of the peace, of the love that they had.
I think there has been, unfortunately, a campaign targeting Tatbir and using it as against us, which the media does anyway. But it is our duty to educate the people and explain what's going on. There are so many non-Muslims who have come to see Tatbir, especially here in London. We've invited, the Hussein Rasul Adam has invited so many people to come, non-Muslims, to come and watch. And they say that it was such a beautiful event. It was so dignified and spiritual, very, very motivating, very, very uplifting to see a community together to participate in something which was so peaceful and poetic and dignified. And then unfortunately also we have those who don't see it in that way. But it's our duty to educate those people. And on a quick point, I always use this example with my friends, is that in Spain they have a tradition where they release a bull out into the wild, and they purposely taunt this bull as well. Now, how many animal human rights violations is that? That's a separate topic. But do you know people die during this ritual? This bull will knock over people and they are killed, they died. You know,
and that seemed to be a sport.
And this is celebrated and entertained. Have you? Let's be honest, that's really, really barbaric and inhumane. But do you see the Spanish people trying to remove this from their culture?
No.
If you try to remove it from their culture, what would happen? There will be a serious backlash of what you're trying to do with our customs and our traditions. And this is something that is a part of us and that we celebrate. Now, if the Spanish can do that, why can't us people who love Abdullah do something similar?
I think it's important for everyone to recall the actual core message here is of Ahl Bayt and commemorating. And while some of us may not practice this particular bloodletting, some do. We should always be respectful to other people's way of mourning. It's a personal journey, and if you don't agree with it, then you can give blood. You know, there's different ways that everybody wants to participate. But I think the respect that you see, well, the disrespect that becomes apparent in these nights is such a shame, because we are all followers of Ahl Bayt, and that's the message we should never forget, and never to really condemn somebody else because we personally don't agree with it. But thank you so much. I think we've come to the end.
I was just going to add to that as well. It kind of goes, I think the main controversy just goes both ways. The people that don't appreciate or don't like or don't understand the act of tatbir, bloodletting, or even Azadari as a whole, they're very quick to attack it and want to expose it, for example. And even on the flip side, those who do the act feel like they're on a moral high ground, and those who don't do the act are considered less Husseini. And that is the main issue, because those who don't do the act can do probably a million times more Husseini things than those that do the act. And it just goes back to what Zara was saying. At the end of the day, it's all about the intention, and everyone connects back to Imam Hussein in their own way. So there's no point of me saying your way is the wrong way and my way is the right way. Essentially, everyone goes back to the Ahl Bayt themselves.
And these nights are about really purifying yourself. And if we're going to sit on the moral high ground, whichever fence you want to sit on, and condemn others, we're defeating the purpose, aren't we? That we need to focus within, don't we, of what we do. But thank you. That's an educational topic, certainly for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your...
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
And with that, I think we've run out of time for today's show. It's been a great, informative show, as you've seen already. So we very much look forward to the remaining episodes, where we're looking to a lot more issues surrounding the jurisprudential context of Muharram and Saffar. Of course, within the next episodes, we're also looking into different poetry aspects, different fiqh aspects, many Husseini, as well as many other parts of the show, which we very much welcome you to see. From myself and Zara, thank you very much for watching. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
With everything patient, with your love impatient, daily I lament, daily I lament, Hussein.